Chapter 1. A Mysterious Assignment. The descent to Zilaria was breathtaking. Liam Mason, a human diplomat with the United Planetary Alliance, peered out the shuttle window at the planet unfolding below him. It was a world unlike any he had seen, a kaleidoscope of towering bioluminescent flora, rivers that shimmered under 3 moons, and crystalline structures nestled in valleys, refracting sunlight in vibrant patterns. This was a place of surreal beauty, and yet its people were known to be intensely private, rarely welcoming visitors. As Liam stepped off the shuttle, he took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp air tinged with a faint, floral scent. He adjusted the diplomatic insignia on his chest, reminding himself of his mission. His task here was simple in theory: to establish peaceful relations with the Zilarians, an ancient race with technology and resources that could benefit both their world and humanity. However, he knew it would be far from easy. Zilarians had complex social structures, and their etiquette was notoriously difficult for outsiders to navigate. His instructions had been minimal, with one key exception: a cultural liaison would be assigned to him, someone to help him understand the intricate customs of Zilaria. As he scanned the welcoming party assembled before him, his gaze settled on a young Zilarian woman standing slightly apart from the others. She had delicate silver scales along her face, a trait that caught the light in a mesmerizing way, and her large violet eyes looked down shyly as she tucked a strand of her dark hair behind a pointed ear. The Zilarian official who had greeted him gestured toward her. "Diplomat Mason, this is Zela, your cultural liaison. She will assist you during your stay, helping you to understand our ways and ensuring your experience here is as smooth as possible." Liam stepped forward, extending his hand in greeting. Zela blinked in surprise, hesitating before reaching out to meet his hand with her own. Her touch was cool and delicate, and she withdrew almost as quickly as she'd extended it, looking down as if embarrassed. "Hi," she said, her voice soft, almost melodic. "I'm the girl assigned to you by local authorities." Liam suppressed a smile at her formality, sensing her nervousness. "It's nice to meet you, Zela. I appreciate you being here to help me understand Zilaria." She looked up, her violet eyes meeting his briefly before darting away. It is my honor," she said, though the slight quiver in her voice suggested she was still getting used to the presence of a human. "There are many customs you may find unfamiliar. My role is to assist you in avoiding any unintentional misunderstandings." Liam nodded, doing his best to put her at ease. "I'll need all the help I can get. I've heard your culture is beautiful but very complex." Zela nodded, her face relaxing slightly. "That is true. Many things are expressed through gestures, symbols, and words that have multiple meanings depending on tone and context. I will do my best to explain them." They began their journey into the capital city, traveling in a small, hovercraft-like vehicle. Liam marveled at the structures they passed, which seemed to blend seamlessly with the surrounding environment. Towers crafted from crystal-like materials rose gracefully into the sky, their surfaces shimmering with the colors of the sky and land around them. In the streets, Zilarian citizens moved with a sense of purpose, each one's attire adorned with subtle patterns and colors, which, Zela explained, indicated their social standing, profession, and even moods. As they traveled, Liam found himself watching Zela more than he intended. She was graceful and soft-spoken, her every movement deliberate. Her voice, when she did speak, was calming, with a melodic quality that made him want to listen. But despite her role as his guide, she seemed nervous, often glancing at him with an expression that was difficult to interpret. Finally, as they reached their destination, beautifully adorned guest residence provided by the local authorities, Liam decided to address it directly. "Zela," he began, trying to keep his tone gentle. "If I'm making you uncomfortable, please let me know. I'd hate to think that my presence is causing any distress." Her eyes widened, and a hint of color appeared on her cheeks. "Oh, no. No, it is not that," she stammered, wringing her hands slightly. "It is only that. I have not been around many humans before. I was chosen for this role because I have studied your customs, but being face-to-face is different." Liam smiled, nodding understandingly. "I get it. The feeling's mutual, actually. I've read a lot about Zilaria and its people, but meeting someone from here in person, it's a new experience." Zela's expression softened, and she seemed to relax a bit, a small smile touching her lips. I suppose we are both learning then. As they entered the residence, Zella explained some of the basic customs he would need to know right away. For instance, a slight bow of the head was a sign of respect, while a hand placed over the heart was a symbol of trust. But even more intriguing were the subtler customs. Zilarians communicated emotion through changes in their skin tone, and certain colors indicated feelings that might not match a verbal expression. She demonstrated by holding her hand out, her silver scales shimmering slightly with a soft blue hue, indicating calm. Wow, Liam said, impressed. So your emotions are literally on display? Yes, she replied, a hint of pride in her tone. We value honesty and transparency, so it is customary for us to allow our emotions to show. As they settled in, Zella offered to give him a brief tour of the surrounding area. They visited a nearby market, filled with vendors selling items that ranged from shimmering fabrics to fruits that emitted a faint glow. As they walked through the bustling stalls, Zella introduced him to several of the merchants, who greeted him warmly but with an unmistakable curiosity. It was clear that humans were still a novelty here. One merchant, an elderly Zilarian with deep green skin, looked between them and chuckled. You two make an unusual pair. But then, sometimes the most interesting things come from unexpected partnerships. Liam laughed, glancing at Zella, who flushed a faint pinky color he was quickly learning indicated a mixture of embarrassment and amusement. As the day wore on, Liam realized that his initial nervousness about understanding Zilarian customs was giving way to genuine fascination. He listened intently as Zella explained the symbolism behind various gestures and the meaning of the vibrant decorations that adorn the city. In turn, he shared stories of Earth, describing cities with skyscrapers, oceans teeming with life, and fields of flowers that didn't glow but had their own beauty. At one point, as they watched a Zilarian street performance, a mesmerizing display of lights and music, Liam noticed Zella watching him rather than the performance. When he met her gaze, she looked away, flustered. You know, he said gently, I really appreciate you taking the time to explain everything. I can tell it's a lot of work. Zella's cheeks turned pink again, and she gave a shy smile. It is not a burden. In fact, it is enjoyable. I had wondered what it would be like to meet a human, but I never thought it would be like this. Like this? Liam echoed, curious. She hesitated, looking down at her hands. I thought humans would be intimidating, but you are not as I imagined. Liam felt a warmth in his chest at her words. And you're not what I expected either. In a good way. They returned to the guest residence as the twin moons of Zilaria began to rise, casting a soft glow over the city. As they stood outside, watching the moons light up the sky, Zella looked up at him, a hint of excitement in her eyes. Tomorrow, I will take you to a place few outsiders have ever seen. It is sacred to my people, but I think you would appreciate it. Liam's heart raced, both at her words and the trust she was placing in him. I'd be honored, Zella. Thank you. They stood in silence for a moment longer, each feeling the weight of the growing connection between them. Neither spoke, but both sensed that this was only the beginning of something deeper, something neither had anticipated when they'd first met that morning. And as Zella shyly waved goodnight, Liam realized he was looking forward to tomorrow more than he'd looked forward to anything in a long time. Chapter 2. Bridging Worlds. The next morning, Liam awoke with a sense of anticipation. Zilaria was already proving to be a world of mysteries and beauty, and his unexpected connection with Zella had added an intriguing depth to his mission here. Her gentle, shy demeanor was a refreshing change from the stoic or overly formal guides he'd had in other alien worlds. As he got ready, he thought about the places she might take him today, especially the sacred place she'd mentioned, place few outsiders had ever seen. Liam found Zella waiting for him just outside the guest residence. The morning light cast a gentle glow over her silver scales, and she looked up at him with a warm, tentative smile. Good morning, she greeted him, her voice soft but more relaxed than yesterday. I hope you rested well? I did, thanks. I'm looking forward to today, he replied, smiling back at her. You mentioned we'd be going somewhere special? Zella nodded, her eyes lighting up. Yes. Today, I will take you to the Lunar Gardens. It is a place sacred to my people, where we go to meditate, reflect, and seek guidance. It's a privilege to share this with you. As they set out, Liam noticed how much more comfortable Zella seemed in her role today. She walked beside him, explaining the history and cultural significance of the areas they passed. He found himself captivated by her descriptions of Zilarian life, especially the customs he would never have understood on his own. She explained that, unlike many human societies, Zilarians held no written laws. Instead, they followed a complex web of oral traditions and social expectations passed down through generations. We believe that to live in harmony with each other and the world around us, rules must be fluid, she explained. Rigid laws can become brittle and lead to conflict. Instead, we rely on guidance from elders and the wisdom of our ancestors. Liam nodded, trying to imagine how such a system would function back on Earth. It sounds peaceful, but how do you manage disputes? Through dialogue, Zella replied, as if it were the simplest thing in the world. Disputes are rare, but when they occur, both sides present their perspective to a council of respected elders. Their role is to help each side see the other's point of view and find a path that serves both. Compromise is highly valued. Her explanation gave Liam a new appreciation for the Zilarians' way of life. Though alien, it struck him as uniquely harmonious, a stark contrast to the bureaucracy and politics he was used to. As they arrived at the entrance to the lunar gardens, he felt a sense of awe. The gardens stretched out before them, a vast expanse of bioluminescent plants and shimmering pools, each carefully arranged to create an ethereal, almost otherworldly landscape. Silverleaf trees arched over winding paths, their branches trailing down to create natural arches. Some of the flora emitted a soft, warm glow in hues of blue and purple, casting the entire area in a dreamlike light. "This is incredible," Liam murmured, almost in disbelief. "I've never seen anything like it." Zella's expression softened, and she seemed pleased by his reaction. "We believe the lunar gardens are where the spirit of our world is most visible. Each plant and stone has been placed with intention to reflect the balance we strive to maintain in our lives." They walked in silence for a time, Zella leading him along a winding path that took them past glowing pools and flower beds filled with blooms that seemed to respond to their presence, closing and opening gently as they passed. Liam could feel the quiet reverence of the space, as if every leaf and petal held an ancient wisdom. As they reached a small, secluded clearing, Zella stopped and gestured for him to sit with her on a smooth stone bench. Liam could see that she had something important to say. "There's something I've wanted to ask you, Liam," she began hesitantly, her gaze fixed on the ground. "I've read about Earth, about the way your people think and feel, but I want to understand more about what it is that drives humans to explore other worlds. Why do you leave your home and travel so far?" The question took Liam by surprise. He thought about his answer, wanting to convey the complex motivations behind human exploration, but also to show her a side of humanity that she could connect with. "Honestly, Zella, I think it's curiosity," he said finally. "Humans are curious creatures. We have this drive to know, to learn, to experience everything the universe has to offer. And sometimes, yes, it's also a search for resources, for alliances. But for me, it's about connecting with other beings. We may be different, but I believe there's always something we can learn from one another. And in learning, we grow." Zella looked up at him, her violet eyes reflecting the soft glow of the plants around them. "I like that. On Zilaria, we are taught that all living things are connected, even across the stars. Perhaps your people sense this connection too, even if they call it something else." Liam felt his heart swell at her words, and he nodded. "Yes, I think you're right. And it's meeting people like you that makes it all worthwhile." A faint blush rose on her cheeks, a delicate pink hue that glowed under her silver scales. She seemed to struggle with her next words, but finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I had thought humans were intimidating, even dangerous. But you've shown me a kindness I didn't expect." They fell into a comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Liam felt an undeniable connection growing between them, a bond forged not just through shared experiences but through the genuine exchange of their innermost beliefs. As the afternoon waned, they returned to the city, walking side by side through the crowded streets. The bustling market was alive with activity, Zilarian vendors calling out to potential customers and vibrant displays of alien produce and handcrafted goods catching the light. Liam noticed Zella's gaze wandering to a stall where a vendor was selling delicate jewelry crafted from the iridescent crystals native to Zilaria. She admired a small pendant shaped like a starburst, its shimmering colors shifting as it caught the light. "Do you like it?" Liam asked, noting the way her eyes lingered on the piece. Zella looked away, a bit embarrassed. "It's beautiful, but it's not something I could. I mean, it's not necessary." Without a second thought, Liam approached the vendor and purchased the pendant. He turned back to Zella, holding it out to her with a smile. "I'd like you to have it. Think of it as a thank you for showing me your world." Zella's eyes widened in surprise, her hands fluttering uncertainly before she accepted the gift, cradling it in her palms as if it were something precious. "Thank you, Liam. It's very kind of you. I will cherish it." He watched as she slipped the pendant over her neck, the small starburst resting against her collarbone. The sight brought a warmth to his chest that he couldn't quite explain. Their connection felt more tangible now, and he knew it wasn't just gratitude or friendship, something deeper was forming, and he sensed that she felt it too. As they walked back to the guest residence, the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the city. Zella's pace slowed, and she looked up at him, her expression both nervous and hopeful. "Liam," she began, her voice soft. "Would you, perhaps, if it's not too much trouble, tell me more about Earth? I would love to know what it's like through your eyes." Liam felt his heart skip a beat. "Of course, Zella. I'd be honored." They spent the rest of the evening on the rooftop of the guest residence, where the view stretched out over the glowing city. Liam told her about the vast oceans of Earth, the towering forests, and the stars as they looked from his home. He described city lights and sprawling fields, the sounds of bustling markets, and the quiet of secluded lakes. Zella listened, captivated, her eyes never leaving his as he spoke. By the time he finished, the twin moons of Zilaria had risen, casting their light over the city below. Zella looked at him, her eyes shining with something he could only describe as awe. "Thank you, Liam," she said, her voice filled with warmth. "I feel as though I've traveled to Earth and back, just listening to you." They sat in silence, the night settling around them like a soft blanket, and Liam knew that this was no ordinary friendship. A bond was forming between them, one that transcended worlds and cultures. And as they sat together under the stars, he realized that he was no longer just a diplomat here for a mission. He was a man discovering a new world, through the eyes of a friend who was becoming far more than he ever expected. Chapter 3. The Threat of Sabotage. The days that followed were filled with new discoveries, not only about Zilarian culture but about each other. Liam and Zella grew closer, sharing stories, laughter, and, sometimes, moments of silence that seemed to say more than words ever could. Liam's mission seemed to be progressing smoothly, and he felt optimistic about a future alliance between humanity and the Zilarians. However, in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake a sense of unease that had begun to creep into his otherwise idyllic days on Zilaria. That unease became reality one morning when a group of Zilarian officials convened in the guest residence for a routine meeting with Liam. Zella, as always, was by his side, her presence a comforting anchor. The officials had just begun discussing potential trade agreements when the door burst open, and a stern-faced Zilarian entered. His skin, a dark shade of blue, was marked by symbols Liam hadn't seen before. His eyes, cold and penetrating, narrowed as they settled on Liam. "Forgive the interruption," the Zilarian said, his tone icy. "I am Elder Varek, and I come with grave concerns." Liam straightened, sensing the tension in the room grow. The officials exchanged wary glances, and Zella looked visibly uneasy, her usually serene expression replaced with one of worry. "Elder Varek," one of the officials spoke up, attempting a diplomatic tone, "please join us. We were just discussing the benefits of an alliance dash." "I am not here to discuss benefits," Varek interrupted sharply. "I am here to discuss the risks. This alliance with humans is misguided. Their presence on our world threatens the purity of our culture, our way of life." Liam felt a chill run through him. He had heard of Zilarian factions that resisted alliances with other species, but he hadn't expected such open hostility. "Elder Varek," Liam said, his voice calm but firm, "I understand your concerns. It's natural to be cautious, but my presence here isn't to impose anything on your people. I'm here to learn from you, and to see if there's a way for our two societies to benefit from cooperation. Varek's gaze didn't soften. Human words are easily spoken, but actions speak louder. How can we trust that your intentions are genuine? Our history teaches us the dangers of allowing outsiders to influence our people. Zela, who had been silent until now, took a small step forward, her voice steady but gentle. Elder Varek, I have spent time with Liam. He is respectful, and he genuinely seeks to understand us. He has shown nothing but kindness and a willingness to learn. The elder's eyes flicked to Zela, a faint sneer crossing his face. Ah, Zela, the young liaison so easily charmed by a human. Your judgment is clouded, child. You do not see the dangers he brings. Liam felt anger rise within him, but he forced himself to remain calm. With all due respect, Elder Varek, Zela's insight is invaluable to me. She has taught me more about your world than I could have ever learned alone. Her guidance has shown me the beauty and complexity of your people. Varek's expression darkened, and he took a step closer, his voice lowering to a menacing tone. Beauty? Complexity? Words to disguise the truth. The truth is that humans bring change, and change brings ruin. Mark my words, Diplomat Mason. Your presence here will only lead to conflict. With that, he turned and left, leaving a tense silence in his wake. The officials looked uncomfortable, unsure of how to proceed, and Zela's face was pale, her usually calm demeanor shaken. The meeting ended soon after, the atmosphere somber and filled with unspoken worries. As the officials departed, Zela lingered, her expression troubled. I'm sorry, Liam, she said quietly, avoiding his gaze. Elder Varek. He is respected by many. His opposition to this alliance could complicate things. Liam sighed, running a hand through his hair. I understand, Zela. Every society has its factions and opposing voices. I just didn't realize how strong the resistance would be here. Zela looked at him, her eyes filled with uncertainty. I didn't realize it either. There are some on Zilaria who fear change, who see outsiders as a threat. But I don't believe that all change is harmful. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant commotion, a loud, echoing noise that seemed to come from the city center. They exchanged a worried glance before rushing outside, where the sight that greeted them sent a jolt of fear through Liam. Smoke was rising from the direction of the city square, and the normally peaceful streets were filled with Zilarians running toward the scene, their expressions filled with alarm. Without thinking, Liam and Zela joined the crowd, pushing through the throngs of people until they reached the square. In the center of the square, a small explosion had damaged one of the Zilarians' sacred monuments, a crystal obelisk that stood as a symbol of peace and unity. The base of the obelisk was scorched, its once pristine surface marred by blackened cracks. The crowd murmured in shock, their colorful skin shades shifting to hues of fear and confusion. Liam felt a sinking sensation in his stomach. This was no accident. Someone had deliberately targeted the monument, an act of sabotage meant to send a message. Zela gripped his arm, her voice trembling. This is the work of those who oppose the alliance. They're trying to turn the people against you. A Zilarian guard approached, his expression grim. Diplomat Mason, the council requests your presence immediately. There are those who believe you may have been involved. Liam's eyes widened in disbelief. What? I would never dash. Zela placed a reassuring hand on his arm. I believe you, Liam, but there are others who won't be so easily convinced. As they made their way to the council chamber, Liam felt a heavy sense of dread. He had come to Zilaria with the hope of building trust and understanding, yet now he was at risk of being seen as a threat. In the council chamber, a heated debate was already underway. The council members argued amongst themselves, their voices overlapping as they tried to make sense of the situation. Some were calling for a thorough investigation, while others were already pointing fingers at the outsider. Elder Varek was among them, his presence radiating an air of vindication. He addressed the council with a fierce conviction, his voice rising above the others. This act of destruction is precisely the danger I warned you about, he declared. The presence of humans on our world has invited chaos. This so-called diplomat has brought nothing but division. Liam felt a surge of anger, but he forced himself to remain composed. With respect, Elder Varek, I had nothing to do with this attack. I came here to learn from you, and to see if we could build something beneficial for both our worlds. One of the council members, a dignified Zilarian named Leary, raised her hand for silence. She looked at Liam with a measured gaze. Diplomat Mason, if you are innocent of this act, then we must find the true culprit. But until we do, there will be suspicion. You must understand that trust is fragile. Liam nodded, his tone sincere. I understand, and I am willing to cooperate in any way to prove my innocence. Zella stepped forward, her voice filled with quiet determination. Elder Varek, members of the council, I believe in Liam's sincerity. I have seen his respect for our culture, his willingness to learn and adapt. He would never harm our people. Her words seemed to carry weight, and several council members nodded thoughtfully. Even Leary appeared moved by her conviction. After a lengthy deliberation, the council agreed to investigate the matter thoroughly, but until the culprit was found, Liam's movements would be restricted, and he would be monitored closely. It was a compromise, one that allowed him to stay on Zilaria but under strict conditions. As they left the council chamber, Liam felt a mixture of relief and frustration. He was grateful for Zella's support, but the distrust from others weighed heavily on him. Outside, Zella looked at him, her eyes filled with an apology. Liam, I'm so sorry. I wish there was more I could do. He gave her a reassuring smile, though his heart felt heavy. You've done more than enough, Zella. I couldn't have gotten through this without you. Zella hesitated, then reached out, her fingers grazing his hand in a gentle, fleeting touch. I will continue to stand by you, Liam. We will find the truth together. As they stood there in the fading light, Liam felt the depth of their connection more strongly than ever. They were no longer just allies in a diplomatic mission. They were two souls bound by trust, caught in a struggle that could change the fate of their worlds. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city, Liam knew that the days ahead would be challenging. But with Zella by his side, he felt a renewed sense of determination to prove himself, not just for the alliance, but for the bond he'd found with her on this beautiful, mysterious world. Chapter 4. A New Alliance. The days following the attack were tense. Suspicion lingered, and Liam felt the weight of mistrust whenever he walked through the city, even with Zella at his side. Despite the council's promise to investigate the attack, rumors circulated that the human diplomat's presence was the cause of the destruction. Some whispered that his arrival was an omen, a prelude to greater chaos. Zella, however, never left his side. Her quiet support was his anchor, and her presence softened the stares and whispers that followed him wherever he went. Together, they spent their days working to clear his name, meeting with sympathetic Zilarians, and gathering information that might help them uncover the true culprits. One evening, as they returned from a meeting with a merchant who'd witnessed suspicious activity near the monument just before the explosion, Zella stopped him on a quiet path lined with glowing trees. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the light like violet gemstones. Liam, she began, her voice soft but filled with resolve. I need to tell you something. Liam's heart raced, sensing the gravity of her words. What is it, Zella? She hesitated, as if gathering the courage to speak. I haven't been entirely honest with you about my role here. I wasn't just chosen as a cultural liaison because of my studies. I volunteered to work with you, despite the objections of my family and friends. Her confession took him by surprise. You volunteered? But why, especially when so many of your people were opposed to the idea? Zella looked away, her cheeks flushed with a faint pink hue. I've always believed that we, as Zilarians, have limited ourselves by isolating from other worlds. I thought, maybe working with a human would show me that our fears were unfounded. And when I met you, I felt something that made me believe this alliance could work. Liam's heart swelled with gratitude, and he took a step closer to her. Zella, I'm honored. Truly, you've been my guide, my friend, and my greatest ally here. I don't know if I'd still be standing here if it weren't for you. Zella's lips curved into a small, shy smile. And yet, I fear my belief in you has made me an outcast to some of my own people. But, Liam, I know you're innocent. I feel it. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Leary, the council member who had been one of the few to believe in Liam's innocence. She approached them with a determined expression. Diplomat Mason, Zella. Leary greeted them with a respectful nod. I bring news. We've uncovered evidence that the explosion was orchestrated by the Anti-Alliance faction, led by Elder Varek. His plan was to turn the people against you, and to make it seem as if humanity itself was a danger to our society. Liam felt a surge of relief, though anger quickly followed. So it was all a setup? He was willing to sabotage his own city, to put people's lives at risk, just to keep us apart? Leary nodded grimly. Varek has always been a staunch traditionalist. He fears the influence of outside cultures and has long held power through fear. But with this evidence, we can finally bring him to justice. Zella's face lit up with hope, and she squeezed Liam's hand. This is our chance, Liam. This is our chance to prove your intentions are true. The three of them made their way to the council chambers, where a formal gathering was called to announce the findings. The room was filled with council members, city leaders, and citizens, all eager to hear the truth. As the evidence was presented, testimonies from witnesses, records of communications, and materials linked to the explosion, a murmur of shock spread through the crowd. Elder Varek, who stood among them, looked furious, his skin shifting to a dark, stormy color that signaled rage. When Leary presented the final piece of evidence, linking Varek to the faction responsible for the attack, he stepped forward, his gaze defiant. Are we truly going to trust the word of an outsider? Varek spat, his voice filled with venom. A human, whose kind has exploited and conquered countless worlds. You call me a villain, but I am the one who seeks to protect our heritage. But the council members were unmoved. Leary rose, her voice calm but resolute. Elder Varek, your actions have endangered our people. You have attempted to undermine the very peace our society is built upon. You will answer for your crimes. The council voted unanimously to strip Varek of his title and influence. A decision met with a wave of relief and cheers from the crowd. For the first time, Liam felt the weight of suspicion lift. He glanced at Zella, who beamed at him, her eyes filled with pride. Once the council meeting concluded, Liam and Zella stood on the balcony overlooking the city, watching the crowd disperse, their chatter and laughter filling the air with a sense of hope and new beginnings. Liam turned to Zella, his heart pounding with gratitude and something deeper he could no longer ignore. Zella, I don't know how to thank you. Without you, I don't think any of this would have been possible. Zella's cheeks flushed a soft pink, and she looked down, fidgeting with the pendant he had given her. You don't have to thank me, Liam. I did what I believed was right. And I had faith in you. Taking a deep breath, Liam gently took her hand, and she looked up at him, her eyes wide with surprise. Zella, you've shown me so much more than your world. You've shown me kindness, strength, and a courage I didn't expect. I came here to build an alliance, but I found something I never imagined. Her lips parted, and he saw her eyes shift to a soft lavender, a color he'd come to recognize as an expression of affection and tenderness. Liam, she began, her voice trembling. I feel the same. Being with you has changed me. I thought I was here to guide you, but you've shown me things about myself, about courage, that I never knew I had. Without another word, they moved closer, the space between them vanishing as they shared a gentle, heartfelt kiss. It was a moment that transcended cultures and worlds, a connection built not on diplomacy or duty but on mutual respect and admiration. When they finally pulled apart, Zella's cheeks were pinker than he had ever seen, but she smiled, her eyes shining with joy. So, what happens now? She asked softly. Liam chuckled, his hand still holding hers. Well, I think we've made a good start. The Alliance has a future, thanks to you. And as for us, I'd like to see where this goes. If you're willing. Zella's smile widened, and she squeezed his hand. I would like that too. Perhaps one day, you could show me Earth, the way I've shown you Zilaria. The thought filled Liam with excitement, and he nodded. I'd love nothing more. In the following weeks, the alliance between humanity and Zilaria took shape, built on the foundation of trust that Liam and Zella had forged. Their bond became a symbol of the potential for unity between their worlds, inspiring others to look beyond their differences and embrace the possibilities of cooperation. Liam's mission, which had once seemed like a simple diplomatic endeavor, had transformed into something much more profound. He had come to Zilaria as a stranger, but he left as a friend, and more importantly, as a man who had found a connection that transcended the stars. As he boarded the shuttle back to his own world, he looked out the window, watching Zella wave goodbye from the launch pad, her figure small but unmistakable. He waved back, his heart filled with a mixture of sadness and joy, knowing that this was not an end but a new beginning. And as the shuttle lifted off, he knew that their paths would cross again. The alliance they had fought for would unite their worlds, but the bond they had forged would unite their hearts, no matter the distance. And so, the diplomat and the alien girl, who had started as strangers from different worlds, had created something rare, a love that would bridge not only the gap between their worlds, but between two hearts that had found harmony amidst the stars.